Hi, how are you guys doing? I'm Dr. Alicia Armitstead, and I'm here today to talk to you guys about Virus of the Mind. It was a book written and published in 1995 by Richard Brodie. And Viruses of the Mind, he literally talks about infectious pieces of culture that they spread rapidly through the population, altering the way people think and obviously the way that they live. He calls them viruses of the mind because, just like any other viruses, there's three characteristics: method of actually going within, penetrating, actually replicating, and then being able to spread to other minds. And so, whenever you have a certain concept or subculture or dogma that can spread like this, then he says that you have a mind virus. He also calls these viruses of the mind memes, and this is back in 1995, and the psychology or the science of it, memetics. And I mean, we've had these throughout history. The concept is always been there. But he was able to write about it and put it in such a way of studying it, which I just found absolutely fascinating. And they're constantly evolving and changing with the times, and they can include anything like fashion, like mini skirts or certain slang phrases, but they can also be really powerfully negative as far as gangs and cults. And so, if we like the viruses or the pieces of culture, then there's no problem. But then at the same time, they literally can program people and behave in really destructive ways. And so, reading through the book, actually, what I found most surprising was that uh, in the science of memetics, that just the concept that your thoughts weren't always your own. Like, literally, thoughts are something that you can catch from other people. You can get infected by them. And to really bring the awareness up, especially as we're trying to transition slowly but surely out of the pandemic, in trying to figure out what works for you, is to bring up your awareness and to make your own choices. And as you're making your own choices, and not everyone's going to agree with you, also be kind to others when they truly are in a different vibration, they're in a different place, they think a different way. Maybe they're, too liberal and not safe enough, or maybe they're too fear based and they're too safe. And so, they have their reality, and to be kind to them as you have your reality. Because I think one of the problems through this whole pandemic is that we don't act, it's never really happened, well, except for 100 years ago. But so nobody, has not currently happened in anybody's lifetime. And this pandemic is a great example of us not being culturally programmed. And so we don't know what to think. And it's almost like our thoughts are like ping pong balls. One day we feel this way, the next day we feel this way. Or maybe it's not even day by day. Maybe it's literally hour by hour or moment by moment. I have children. And so sometimes I'm like, play dates are okay as long as we're taking these precautions. Then I'm like, oh my God, play dates are not safe at all. What am I doing? And it's almost like our thoughts, I'm exhausted. Going back and forth all day long. I'm like, virus is super dangerous. We should all be quarantined until there's a vaccine. And other times I'm like, oh my God, we can't live in this fear. We have to create herd immunity. I don't even like vaccines, but I'm just like, oh my God, how do we get out of here? I trust the experts. No, the experts are misleading us. Numbers don't lie. The numbers are lying. I'm healthy. I'm not afraid of getting the virus. Oh my God, I don't want to get this virus. Drones are good. Drones are bad. Quarantine is the answer. Herd immunity is the answer. Masks are good. Are masks even really doing anything? What does CNN say? What does Fox News say? What does Uncle Bob say? It's like so utterly confusing. And so just know, if you're going back and forth like a ping pong ball, you're not the only one. And this literally is why, because we don't have any viruses of the mind. No, we don't have any cultural programming. And I actually want to show you guys how that's a good thing. We really have a clean slate here. We really can find our answers within. And that's how we should always find our answers, anyways. And so it's like a skill set that we haven't allowed ourselves because we do have all this cultural programming. And sometimes it's fine and sometimes it's dangerous. And we know it because, we can hear our parents', voices in our heads. And we know it's not necessarily ours, but I want to bring your awareness that it happens so much more. And actually, the frustration of it when we don't have it, but that we should learn that it's okay and to go within. Going within is really, where do you feel comfortable? You have the right answer when you're at peace. When you're stressed out, you don't have the answer yet. And what is your answer might be different than other people's, and to be okay as long as everyone's taking decent precautions. Not everybody has to agree with you, and to be kind and loving during this transition. So, virus of the mind, also known as a meme, is any thought, belief, or attitude that you have that can spread to and from other people's minds. And they're not necessarily, our thoughts are not our own. And that memes literally can enter into our mind without permission. And that part of the mental programming can really overtake our lives without being aware of it. So I just love this book because it brought up the awareness and different ways of getting infected with the viruses or the memes is through conditioning. Repetition, which we all use in grade school and so forth. If you hear it repeated enough times, it just becomes part of it. Advertisers, salespeople, know this well and they use it. And a good sales book, they say that customers won't buy unless they're asked 7 times. I guess in a good way, it takes 7 times, but that repetition really literally implants the buyer or to buy in the customer's mind with us not necessarily knowing. The second way, he talks about cognitive dissonance. And when things actually don't make sense, you create memes in order to process and work through something that doesn't make sense. For example, imagine that you have a friend that's upset with you and you don't know why. You have two memes. One is that your friend is upset with you. Well, actually, one, friend, and two, upset. And you're trying to understand or resolve the dissonance by creating new memes. So you rearrange the thought patterns, and it's like, oh, Bill's upset because he's paid for lunch the last 3 times. And you have no idea if this is his real reality, but you've created this reality. Right or wrong, you have a new meme about Bill and lunch that will influence your future behavior. It's like assuming. What happens when you assume. And the third way that memes kind of come in and take advantage is by pushing genetic buttons. He calls it the Trojan horse. And this is, subconsciously things that we're automatically attracted to, that we pay special attention to. Anything that would be a warning of danger, children crying, anything that we find sexually attractive, we're just going to be susceptible to it. And that they can program viruses or memes in bundles. They push our button, they get our attention on one thing, but then with it comes all sorts of other memes or ideas. And so, thinking of cultural programming, patriotism, we're not born with patriotism, we're taught that. And so elementary school programming didn't just go with reading and writing and arithmetic, but also the Pledge of Allegiance. and every morning repeating it over and over again. Any native born American knows for sure that the United States is one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, right? And to also, marriage actually is programming in an okay way, um, but to realize that that's what you're doing is you have your certain thoughts of what marriage is, and you may or may not be getting married to somebody else who may or may not have the same thoughts that go along with it. What is a family? What do you do for your wife or husband? Um, what sacrifices do you make for the family? What does it take to, what do you want to see on a daily life? And if that's not all talked about, before marriage, and you find yourself in a situation otherwise, that, a good counselor would help you reprogram the viruses of the mind that you have around marriage. Coca-Cola is another example. Millions of dollars that they pay for showing you on TV and billboards and so forth, young people in bathing suits just having a good time drinking Coca-Cola. So you see it over and over again. So when you're in the grocery store and you're walking down the aisle and you see Coca-Cola, you automatically think, oh, it's a good time, or I want to have that fun time. So then you subconsciously actually want it because you associate it with those pictures. Obviously you can override the urge through the conscious intention of the fact that it's pure chemicals and pulls calcium out of the bones and is so awful for you on so many levels. But that's the answer to all these viruses of the mind, is just bringing up your awareness and actually choose something different, and to realize that I'm here today to talk to you about the fact that you actually have a choice. And so um, you know uh, also, that when you have a meme, a way of creating it is through reward. And we do that a lot of the times too. I know I do it with my children. When I want a specific behavior, I'll reward them with a compliment, or, a little kiss or something like that. And so well, yeah, and we watch how the mice goes through the maze, and they're just kind of wandering, and then at the end they find the cheese, and with a few repetitions, they're not wandering through the maze. They're just like, oh my gosh, where's that cheese? I know that cheese is at the end. And so it's just animalistically how we're hardwired as well. And so um, using memes and using this programming is also a way that you can bully people, which isn't always the opportune way of doing it, but it can work. Like that really hard sales man when you're trying to buy a car. People feel uncomfortable. They don't like the pressure. So it's either you give in to the pressure and you're like, okay, I'll do it. And you might even think like, I want the sales guy to like me. Or you're uncomfortable, so it's easier for you to walk away. Those are usually the two ways that people react to that type of hard um, a hard programming or dissonance. And so then the Trojan horse method is getting you to pay attention to one meme, but then sneaking in a whole bundle of other things along with it. And it would be like the instinctive buttons. It's one reason why we say that sex sells, is because automatically it's a button that gets pushed. It draws our attention. It could also be anything that's dangerous, anything around food, because that's instinctual. But it could also be positive, like helping children, or oh, look at the, dog or cats. But nothing quite sells like sex. And all the advertisements, all the companies marketing knows that. An example of putting bundling technique is politicians and lawyers use this a lot. They'll say a simple memes that people can agree with, And then at the end, they'll sneak one in where they're trying to make you agree to it, because the mind will go, yes, 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 yes. And then they want you to say yes to that last one. We all want freedom. Yes. We all want democracy to work for everyone. Yes. We all want everyone to have the opportunity to pursue the American dream. Yes. And we all want a national health care system that makes that possible. And it's like, yeah, okay. But then if you really look at it, how can you conclude that, the federal management of healthcare, has anything to do with freedom or democracy or the American dream? And it's just amazing to watch how it does actually work. Um, Another way, NLP, have you guys ever heard of that technique? Neuro linguistic programming uses a technique called anchoring. And you take an image or sound or sensation and you link it to actually something unrelated. But you program it, you anchor it. You can anchor yourself quickly. Just do it a few times. Anchor yourself into a good mood. If you close your eyes and imagine a time when you were excited or motivated or in a good mood, and you literally go there with your mind and create that vivid mental picture. And when you can actually feel it in your body, you're having that physical reaction, you can lightly scratch your fingertip. Just use your thumbnail and scratch your index finger. And you do that, a couple days, a couple weeks, and then if you want to just put yourself in that good mood automatically, you don't even have to picture anything, you would just do this. And your body would automatically start going there on a physical level. Just try it out. You have nothing to lose, and how easy that would be, and how much we actually need to put ourselves in that good mood. And so that's anchoring. And so another way to do this is just to watch how, we're likely to absorb a mean from a friend, from somebody that we trust versus a total stranger. And sales knows this as well. They want to be as friendly as possible. They want to create a friend meme in our mind for them. And also, one basic way of doing this is by mirroring, which I know kind of sounds weird and I can't demonstrate it alone, but if you're talking with somebody and she crosses her legs, then you cross your legs. If she puts her hand on her face, then you put your hand on your face. And that automatically actually creates rapport. Whatever matching posture, but you could also mirror their tone, the way that they talk, the rhythm of their speech, things like that. And you're creating rapport or chemistry. You're gathering someone's trust in a very subconscious way. And I think if it's one thing that I shouldn't say one thing, another thing that this pandemic has taught us is actually how little we've actually needed to survive. And our consumerism is just through the roof. It's totally unnecessary. And with such a forced pause, and like going to the store and shopping, we actually have this opportunity to realize like we don't always need that new pair of sneakers, or we don't need the newest gadget from Best Buy. And so again, as we go back to our normal, become aware of the virus of the mind, and again, you create and you decide what you really actually want to buy. We shouldn't be in debt, every family in America, the way that we are, and just subconsciously the way that we try to culturally keep up with the Joneses. It's just, these are all the things I want you guys to think about, because right now we have a clean slate to really start fresh, start over. I also came across this poem I wanted to share with you guys, written in 1869, but it was reprinted, excuse me, during the 1919 pandemic. So this poem is perfect even for 100 years later for this pandemic, but it was actually written in 1869 by Kathleen O'Meara. And people stayed home and read books and listened, and they rested and did exercises and made art and played and learned new ways of being and stopped and listened more deeply. Someone meditated, someone prayed, someone met their shadow, and people began to think differently, and people healed. And in the absence of people who lived in ignorant ways, dangerous, meaningless, and heartless, the earth also began to heal. And when the danger ended and people found themselves, they grieved for the dead and made new choices and dreamed of new visions and created new ways of living and completely healed the earth, just as they were healed. So, enjoy. Be well.